Take a seat at the table with us. My name is Madi Warden.
I'm Jayden Hewitt.
I'm DeShawn Johnson.
I'm Luke Joseph.
Welcome back to the Sports Roundtable podcast. We've got a couple newbies with us here today. How you guys feeling coming onto the podcast for the first time?
Pretty good, honestly.
Feeling good.
I'm excited.
All right, well, let's jump right into it then. So we had some pretty good games going on this past week. Do we want to start off with basketball recently?
We can go with basketball.
We can just
We can
get right into it.
Might be a long conversation. We
It's
can
going
hop
to
into
be a
that one.
long conversation.
All right, well, if one of you guys wants to take it away, go ahead.
One of our newbies want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So 59-56 Minnesota. We kind of let that one slip at the end for sure. It looked like we were in command. I believe it was 45-36, 7 or 8 minutes left. Looked like we could have put them in the hole. We didn't. It came down to it. Turnovers started to clean up in the second half a little bit, but we started to get out-rebounded, and a glaring stat, we shot 41.2% from the free throw line. You just can't win games like that, especially down the stretch. If you're down 1 or 2 coming to the end of the game, you cannot miss free throws. That's what we did. A.J. Hogard missed a game-time free throw, and then at the end of the day, that is really what cost us.
What do you think, Luke?
Or
either of you?
I'll just say the bench didn't really help out much either. Only 8 total points from the bench. Only 2 players in double figures. That was Tyson Walker and Jayden Akins with 20 and 16. Malik Hall was having an amazing run of just being that second option. In the last game against Maryland, he played amazing in the second half. He scored like 13, 14 points. When Tyson wasn't getting it going in the second half, Malik really stepped up and looked like he was going to be kind of that reliable second option. And then this game, he only shoots the ball 4 times. He made it twice, but 1 of 6 from the free throw line. Just can't be that second option and then just disappear.
Right.
Absolutely.
DeShawn, hit
Yeah, I definitely kind of think that one of the things that's going on with the team that we've continuously seen this year is just the fact that they can't close games. It's been a consistent thing. We've seen it multiple times throughout the year, and we talked about it a little bit before the show, just the different rotations that we have throughout the games and how they're not really that efficient. One of the ones specifically that I think it's just kind of been the biggest buzz is obviously the Cooper and Madi combination, playing them for multiple minutes together at a time, and it's one of our most inefficient lineups that we had.
Definitely.
Another one of the points, we could have done better as far as transfer portal goes and getting a center, but where we are now, we're obviously going to have to find a better rotation, obviously you can't go better roster at this point, but Tom has to find a way to get the best out of the players that we have and some of these new faces. Booker, we talked about that, although that he's a little bit out of position and there's a lot to find out for him in these upcoming years. I mean, he's going to have to we know that experience is going to be the best thing for these players.
Right.
Definitely.
I don't know what the end of the season is going to look like for this team. I mean, we obviously were top 5 rankings as far as preseason goes, and now we're sitting at 500 in the conference. So, I mean, there's a couple decisions that I think really had to be made as far as how we develop this team. Are we going to Tom has continued to talk about the veterans, how they're going to be like one of the focal points of this team. But, I mean, if we go and just look at some of the statistics from this game, you mentioned AJ, he only shoots the ball 4 times. You got Tyson, who's there for...
Malik shot it.
I'm sorry. Malik shoots the ball 4 times. AJ, he goes 1 for 6, and that has kind of been one of the more frustrating things of the season so far is to see that AJ just sometimes seems completely toned out in these second halves. And
Yeah.
Right.
Tom continuously says that we need more out of the veterans. So if that's not shaping out the way it's supposed to be, do we start giving more time to these younger faces? Where do we go next? Because I mean, I think this season so far has been a disappointment, regardless of us having a couple better games in the last 5-10, winning a couple in and out of conference games. But sitting at 500 this far into the season, it's not going to cut it for us for sure.
I agree. I was going to say, honestly, at this point in the season, what do you guys think about them making the tournament?
I think, we have a pretty favorable schedule coming up. I think we can make the tournament. Obviously, that favorable schedule started with Minnesota. Dropping
lost.
that game really, really hurts. You go to the barn. That's a tough game to play every year, all the time. Doesn't matter how good Minnesota is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to win those games when you're a better team. We came into the season. It looked like we were going to be a better team than most of the teams in Big Ten, and we're just really not. And, that comes – we need a little bit better production out of our bench guards, too, a little bit. I think that comes into play when you said that AJ gets a little bit lackadaisical. That happens, and then you need somebody like Trey Holloman to kind of step up.
Yeah.
He played 22 minutes. He shot 3 times. And that's not on him. I don't like to harp on Izzo too much. He's led us to great things in the past.
Absolutely.
You can't really say too much about it, but you also – basketball's come to a style of play now where you are living on the perimeter most of the time, and you got to let guys that can get points from the perimeter get points from the perimeter. Trey Holloman's one. Xavier Booker playing 3 minutes is, I don't want to say unacceptable, but it's tough to see because Xavier Booker can score from the perimeter. I'd like to see a little bit of Xavier Booker and Jackson Kohler together. And that's something I've really proposed to, people talking about basketball this year. Kohler's great in the post. Kohler's got great footwork. He may lack a little bit defensively. Booker as well, and we've seen that. But at the end of the day, we do play pretty well defensively on the perimeter with our guards. So at the end of the day, we got to put pressure on guys, and we got to be able to get scoring from 2 guys. Carson Cooper and Madi Sissoko, love them to death, but they are not going to score very often. That's just not their game. Madi Sissoko shot the ball 1 time. Carson Cooper shot the ball 3 times. That's just, and most of these are dunks. At the same time, you have to get points on the perimeter. So,
yeah, I would like to agree with the fact that that we have a favorable schedule, and it's definitely more of a possibility for us to get into the tournament. But kind of to go off one of the things you said as far as the way the basketball game or the game of basketball is now and living out on the perimeter, that's kind of one of the differences I'm seeing from the way things panned out last year, and I mean obviously the run that we had, but. Before the year, the Final Four talks, the Elite Eight talks, whatever, we were hoping that we were going to have a better run than we would last year. But the one thing that we're missing is, I think you guys remember last year during the tournament. I mean, there was multiple times where MSU would be down a couple points, and we're late in the second half, and either Joey or Jayden was there to make some of the most ridiculous shots. And I mean, we do not have that.
We just don't have that guy.
Exactly.
Do not, absolutely
miss Joey
not.
Hauser very much.
Definitely missed. I think he was definitely arguably the biggest piece from our little run last year.
Yeah.
He spaced the floor so well, and that's what we desperately need right now.
Definitely.
And even with the schedule coming up on Saturday, we play number 10 Illinois at home, and then at Penn State, at Michigan, at Purdue.
I was gonna say
at Indiana is our last game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just getting to a point where it's we just want to at least make the tournament because I think Izzo, obviously Mr. March, he's had amazing runs in the tournament. Obviously hasn't won. I mean, he's won one championship, but it's still those runs were amazing to watch.
Right.
So I think it's just getting to a point where just make the tournament.
Yeah.
Just make it.
And that's a crazy dynamic to think about. I mean, we make a crazy run last year. This year it's predicted that we're going to go, I mean, we have a top 5 roster. We have all these faces. We should make a better run, and we're now hoping that they make the tournament. It's just a crazy dynamic to think about.
Well, even Thomas was talking last week on the podcast that every single game that we play for the rest of the season we're favored in except for Purdue, and that's because it's at Purdue, and Purdue is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, the energy there is...
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
When was the last time we won at Purdue?
Oh, I don't remember. He
said
it,
It's been
too.
a while.
It's been a while. It's been a really long time.
Purdue's proven to be, I mean, they're 21-2, I believe. So, I mean, they're not beatable by any sorts. I mean, but they have had lapses where you have seen teams that I think Northwestern took them to the wire the other day. They can be beat, maybe not at home, and maybe if we're not shooting the ball well.
Right.
I always go back to the Baylor game, and it's an anomaly on the year. You can't harp on anomalies because at the end of the day, consistency is going to prove who you really are. But a Baylor game, we got out in transition a lot, shot a lot of threes, we got early offense. I think that's something that I wish we would go back to more. I think when you see us play well offensively, we are early on offense and in transition shooting the ball. We've seen that a lot from Akins lately, getting the ball in transition, shooting it. Tyson likes to push the pace. AJ likes to push the pace. But I think, more of our guys just got to start hunting their shot when they can actually make shots. Tyson Walker shooting 18 times, that's acceptable. Jayden Aiken shooting 11 times, that's acceptable. AJ Hogarth shooting 6 times is not acceptable. I mean,
Right.
at the end of the day, he can score the ball, whether it's consistently or not. You can score the ball, and Malik Hall 4 shots. That's rough.
Yeah.
Malik Hall has always proved to be semi-inconsistent, but we love him for the fact that he can go off at any time. He can have a huge game at any time, and that usually comes when he's shooting the ball more. So I think we need to start looking into early offense a lot more, and that might help us a little bit.
I think I don't want to go on too much of a tangent on this, but I kind of think that one of the things I feel like that we've struggled with, like, consistently, is just an energy guy. Like, I mean, like, Malik, AJ, Tyson, they're all great players in their owns, but it seems like when they are in these stoops where they get down or they're irritated or it's a bad game, I mean, you can visibly tell, and
you can just see the look on their face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I'm not exactly sure that we had the energy guy last year, but we kind of had more consistent play and things just went a lot better. We've obviously had a lot of ups and downs this year, and it just seems like, and you look for it in any of the veterans, whether it's going to be AJ, Malik, I mean, any of them, and even in Jayden, some of the times in the second half, it just seems like when their shots aren't falling, they're done, like whether they're going to be on the court or not. So, like I said, I don't want to go too much of a tangent. There's not too much you can change about it now, but like if they can just find someone, whether it's rotations, find someone to like take that role in the starting lineup, they got to have an energy guy, I think, for sure.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I want to say, at the end of the day, I trust Tom Izzo to do the right thing.
Yeah, we got pieces. Yeah. We definitely have
we have the right pieces, and we have Tom Izzo. We've had a lot of people talking about him, retiring and this and that. I think, the game is maybe past his style of play by, but everybody can adapt.
Yeah.
Tom Izzo he's not 90 years old. He can adapt to the game of basketball, and I think he knows that. And I think we've seen that. I mean, we've done it before. And we'll do it again, but it seems we don't have guys that are going to be able to close games, but maybe the style of play is just a little bit too much to figure out right now with the guys that we have. And I know we have a pretty good recruiting class coming in next year as well. Good guards coming in, so maybe that's going to help too. But like I said, we have Tom Izzo. So at the end of the day, if we can make the tournament, then chalk it up for a competitive game 1, competitive game 2 if we make it. So
that's the thing. Once we get in, I mean, it's anything goes at that point.
Exactly.
The record 0-0 when you make the tournament. So
so jumping across the street a little bit, we've got women's basketball also took on Minnesota this week, and DeShawn is covering the women's basketball game. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean that game was a really rejuvenating game for the women's basketball team. It's kind of been a little bit of a funny build-up. So I mean, you go back to mid-January last month, January 20th, I think is the last when they played Minnesota the first time. And up at this point, I mean, I couldn't give you the exact number, but I'm sure that at this time Michigan State was averaging just right around 90 points. I think like the exact number was like 89.3 or something like that. I mean, they were dominating on teams, and granted, there had only been so many Big Ten matchups at this point, and they did lose one of them, Nebraska. So, I mean, you're still kind of feeling out the Big Ten, and it's completely different compared to almost any other women's basketball league that we have in collegiate basketball. So, they get held to 50 points, and it was an absolute stunner. It was a way, so as far as we didn't really hear too much until everyone made it back, and I think that one of the things that Frelick really talked about was just the team just didn't seem together. Same things that's going on with the men's basketball team. A lot of new faces there. Obviously, Frelick is brand new. So, I mean, they had looked really good so far, but they were really battle-tested against this Minnesota team, and it just didn't seem like they were all there together. You fast forward a little bit, you skip through these next 4 or the next 3 games they have after that, and it's 3 straight wins in a row. Chemistry's through the roof, it seems like. I mean, everyone's flowing. I want to say 4 or 5 games straight, they had at least 4 to 5 different Spartans all scoring in double digits. Mo has been absolutely on fire. Didi, I mean, she started the year crazy, and she's, although the scoring has gone down a little bit, she's been facilitating all over the place. It seems like the veterans, it's a little bit different, and we talked about this earlier in the year, it's just how it's a little bit of the opposite of what's going on with the men's basketball team right now. The veterans are doing everything they can.
They're really stepping
in
up.
their roles, and then you got some of these younger faces like Abby Kimball coming in. She's had a huge transition from what she did last year. Julia, she stepped into playing center as a guard, and she's shutting down multiple different centers that we have in the Big Ten. It's been crazy. So they win 3 straight games. They come into this Minnesota game, and it's definitely one of the most preparation games as far as everyone looking out for really seeing how this team's changed in the matter of a month. So I mean, you have to give Minnesota a little bit of credit, or at least a little bit of notice. They did lose one of their best players. I can't recall her name at this moment, but I know that, I mean, she was she is number 4 in Big Ten scoring right now, and she's missed the last 3 games with a foot injury.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't won since. Their last win was against Michigan State, and they have not won since.
Wow.
So you do got to take a little bit of notice there. But the final score in that game, let me pull it up really quickly.
It was 76-65.
It was. I can tell you that game was it seemed a lot closer than it really was.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Minnesota. It's just MSU. They kind of did fall apart in the second half, but the first half they had. Insane. The first 12 points, all 3-pointers. I mean, they just bang, bang, bang. They're knocking them down. It was a complete change from what we seen when they played at Minnesota the first time. So,
right.
I mean, just overall, Fraley talked about how rejuvenating it was. And I think the biggest storyline to kind of come out of it, like just moving away from the game, that was their 17th win of the season. They only won 16 games last year. They've got multiple graduate students on this team, and right now the focus is on not just getting into the tournament. It is like winning. Or we're talking about trying to win the Big Ten championship, or we're trying to get to the Final Four. Like if you start to ask around in that locker room, they are really locked in as far as getting deep into the tournament this year.
Yeah, I mean, and as they should be. I mean, they only lost to Iowa's number 1 in the Big Ten. They only lost because of Caitlin Clark's 3.
Yes,
and that was a really close game. Like that really shows the. What word am I looking for? Like the strength of the team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they just to add on to that, the game they had against Ohio State, they only lost by 5 points. And if you look at top 25 in Big Ten comparisons, there's 1, 2, and 3. Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana are all top 25 at I believe it's 2, 5, and 14 right now. Michigan State is right there at number 4, and they've been snubbed. You could say they've been snubbed. I mean, that's a whole different debate in itself, but. That is the only real losses. They had some early, like I said, some early stumbles in the beginning of the season, some low-scoring games. But since they've really gotten serious, Indiana, as they get ready to face another, like I said, a number ranked 14, they only have 2 losses against Ohio State and Iowa. So I mean, as far as like what you can take away from what they've been doing this year, it's outstanding, especially when you compare what happened last year of the last couple of years of not making the tournament. Robin Fralick's brand new here. You got.
She's been great.
She's been outstanding, and just away, like I said, one more away from the game. She's an awesome human being, man.
She just seems like it. She seems like it.
Yeah.
So they play Ohio State Sunday, correct?
They play, so Indiana tomorrow, and then Ohio State. So 2 top 25 opponents this upcoming weekend, coming Thursday.
So here's my question to you: do you think they're both at Breslin?
No. Tomorrow they'll be in Indiana. They'll be away, and then they come back Sunday to play for the Super Bowl.
So my question is do you think if they win these next 2 games, they get into the rankings?
So, I mean, I think that a win over either of these teams will, like, spot them a decent spot in the rankings right now. I mean, because we kind of talked about this earlier as far as, like, the NCAA rankings, you know, it's not just, college rankings have a little bit of skill points when you start to look at them. And so if you can add in either one of these games right now with a confident win, even a down-to-the-wire match, but you can see that MSU has played a really strong game, like how you've seen against Iowa or how you've seen against Ohio State, where they can keep up and keep it close. A win in either one of these matches, I think, could totally net them in the top 25. Mm-hmm. I think if a win in both, well, I mean, it'll really get some, what's the right word I'm looking for here, some exposure going to what this team really has going on. Because, like I said, Ohio State, Iowa, they're both top 5 and top 25, and Michigan State's been right there with them all the way up leading to this point.
Right.
After Ohio State, we go on to play at Michigan and then at Purdue and then back home against Rutgers in Illinois and then at Wisconsin. It's definitely going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
Just like if we're breaking that down to the math, I want to say that they only need 3 more games to net a spot into the tournament. So you can almost book it with the way this team's been playing. So they are really excited about being able to make it after what's been going on in the program the last couple of years.
So here's a question off the top of my head. I don't know if you know this, but when was the last time that our women's basketball team beat Michigan at Chrysler? Do you know?
No, I do not know the last time they beat them at Chrysler. I can say that at least as far as season sweeps go with Michigan, none of our graduate students have swept besides, I think, Julia. Mo hasn't. Dee's only a junior, but she hasn't. Basically none of the roster that we have right now has had a season sweep on Michigan. So that's also kind of been a little fun cue that they've been talking about a little bit, just like trying to get that off, especially for some of this, like Mo specifically, Julia, they're about to be, this is going to be their final year. Tori, this is going to be all their final year. So it's going to be, I'd have to find that for you, but I'm not exactly sure, but like I said, I do know that they haven't swept them in at least 4 years.
I would say this would definitely be the year to do it. I mean, Michigan has been a little inconsistent their last 5 games.
Yeah.
They on the 24th of January they beat Maryland in overtime, then they lost to MSU,
Right.
and then Illinois they lost at home, and then they finally got back in the win column by beating Penn State only by 5, and then they lost to Nebraska at home. So I think this is definitely the year to actually sweep them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for
definitely. The first game, if I can remember correctly, the first game against Michigan, I mean, like that game ended up turning out insane because Michigan has, I believe, the number 1 defense in the Big Ten right now, and Minnesota's right behind them, so they've like kind of been battle tested with those 2 games. But I mean, Michigan State got out to, an early offensive flow, and it was really odd to see that, expecting that, that you kind of expected them to come out a little slow. And not only that, their defense, I think they're like a 6 or 7 rank in the defense right now, Michigan State is, but it's been through the roof these past couple of games. If you look at that Michigan game, they shut them down in the first half. I mean, I think they only allowed less than double-digit points in the second.
Oh, yeah. I think they only had like 7 points.
Yeah, it was for sure under 10, and that was a huge showing for them. And
Absolutely.
Robin talked about her first time in that rivalry, and how she knew, she grew up around here, but
Right.
the energy is completely different, and all of them believe that you never want to get too big of a head about these things, especially with something like an in-rival competition. But
Right.
they like you said, it's really the year, if it's ever been the year for them to try and get this over Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one stat I actually wanted to point out too, and this is going to go back to the tournament run that they could make. They're shooting 36% from 3 this year.
Yeah.
That is a recipe for tournament wins,
Yes.
tournament competitiveness right there. If you were that high, anything within 4% of 40% as a team is unreal. That is unreal. I think that is kind of a recipe for, like I said, winning a tournament game, making a deeper run into a tournament. And like we've seen with Iowa too, we've taken it to the wire with Iowa, and that's kind of their same strategy. So we see that it does work, but we have to obviously match that in all facets of the game. We have the rest of the remainder of the year, but I think that's really going to be important going on.
Yeah, definitely. At the start of the season, they were, their shooting was unbelievable. The numbers were it almost seemed like you couldn't trust their numbers the way they were looking in the beginning. And obviously things have cooled down a little bit, but the consistency they've had from the 3-point line has been pretty outstanding. It was kind of a funny keynote that the worst 3-point shooting night they've had was that night against Minnesota, hensing to the only being held to 50. They shot less than 18% from 3 and shot less than 32% from 3, or from the field that game. So just being able to make consistent shots and finding their shots is obviously a big part of their offense. Like I said, Didi's been facilitating, but a lot of these girls have gotten really comfortable just with where they want to shoot the ball at. So it's definitely been a consistent part of their game so far, and they just had to keep to that. That's another thing Felix talked about, is just keeping consistent. Talking about kind of dynamics, how we were talking about the men's basketball team as far as what we expected to where they are now. It's another opposite thing.
Right.
What you kind of expected for this team coming in, and Fraley talks about it all the time. You didn't know. Really, you couldn't really take any serious guesses because of what's gone on the last couple of years. What happened with Merchant in the car accident last year? So you kind of you got to do that math. New head coach, all these things, and they're just crushing it. So it's another one of those crazy dynamics, and it's just been so fun to be a part of, for sure.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about that Michigan State rivalry, and now we've got a really big one coming up this weekend that I've just been itching to talking about. We've got the Michigan State hockey team is taking on Michigan for the second time this season.
Right.
They, at the beginning of the year, or no, it wasn't even at the beginning of the year. They split last month, so we lost. It was devastating. We lost 7-1 at home against Michigan, and it was atrocious.
Yeah,
it was rough to watch. And then night 2 went to Yost. We were down 4-1 in the second. Scored 4 unanswered goals.
Right.
Ended up winning the game 7-5.
Yeah.
So we've got a big weekend coming up. They play at Yost on Friday, and then they play at Little Caesars Arena on Saturday, which is going to be a really good one. And I was even talking before this, this is a really big weekend for them. This is going to help them, especially clinch the number 1 spot in the Big Ten, so they can get ahead more of Wisconsin. And we've got a bye week coming up, so we really need those 6 points. But last year, we played at Munn for the second night, or for the second series, and then we played in Detroit. So night one, I think we got swept that weekend. We lost to Michigan night one because they had their guys back from the World Juniors, and one of those guys includes Adam Fantilli, who's a great, well-rounded player. And then night two, Luke Hughes scored with 0.6 seconds left in overtime. So it was a heartbreaker, but now, like, seeing how far this team has come this year, it's like you split the first weekend, you're heading to Yost, and then you want the revenge for what happened last year.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be a big one for them. And obviously, like last weekend against Notre Dame, Trey Augustine had his third shutout of the year. So that puts him in first place out of any Big Ten goalie. Behind him is Ryan Bischel from Notre Dame and Justin Close from Minnesota. And those are both grad students. Trey Augustine is a 19-year-old freshman who is
insane,
blowing everybody out of the water. And he's insane. But last weekend, they played Notre Dame, had a split. So they lost night one, 4-1. They were tied for most of the game. And then their big talk this year is play your whole 60 minutes. And then in that third, they kind of just lost it a little bit. I think they had 2 goals on Trey, so it went to 3-1, and then an empty netter. So they won 4-1. And then night 2, they just came out and flipped a switch. I know. And we've seen that, like, the past 3 weekends, and obviously they're scratching for a sweep. They've split the last 3 weekends against Minnesota, Michigan, and Notre Dame. And they were away at Notre Dame. So even, like, getting those 3 points on the road is still a big deal.
Yeah.
Getting 3 points on the road during a series is a hard thing to do. We did it in Minnesota 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, you've kind of been there for me throughout the first couple, like, me getting into the hockey experience here, especially over at the State News. And I think that, like, I've really gotten tuned with them in the last couple of weeks, just, like, learning about the different lines that we have and the way that as far as rotations, we're going to talk about men's basketball, like, we have a really good, like, set of rotation for the way that our hockey team wants to play. And I've really gotten into this. And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to ask you, just looking at these last 3 weeks, you talk about the Michigan series, the Notre Dame series, and the Minnesota, the last 4 weeks. Minnesota, and then coming into this Michigan series, I don't know if it's the play the 60 minutes that you mentioned, but what is it that is about this team that makes them, like, still so resilient in some of these second matchups that they have? I mean, like you mentioned the Michigan series, I mean, how bad that was, and then you come back the next day, you're at Yost, and you're down 1-4, and you make a crazy comeback still. What have you seen that's been, like, displayed from this team that just makes them so scratchy? I mean, I understand losing the first game makes you want to win the second game, but it's got to be something more than that.
It's Adam Nightingale.
Okay.
He is outstanding. Like, you see a team from the former coach, I don't remember what his name is, but this is Nightingale's second year coaching.
Yeah.
He has led them to I think they're 12-4-2 in the Big Ten right now. 12 wins is a new program high.
Right.
Their last time that they won that many games, last year they won 11, and that's it. That's the most games that they've won in the Big Ten in a conference.
Okay.
Wow.
But Adam Nightingale has just come in and just completely flipped the script. Like, he's got Jared DeMichael on staff, Brad Fast, Mike Towns. Like, he's got a really good group of guys that are backing him up. But Adam Nightingale is just, like, he's never, like, he always says frustration is a wasted emotion. Like, you cannot get down on yourself. Like, that's always what I've noticed about him is he's never negative. And he's always said, like, you can go in, shut out a team 3-0, and I'm going to tell you that probably wasn't the greatest game that we've had, but at least you won.
Wow.
We can go in and lose 5-1, and I'm going to go into the locker room and be like, you guys played a great game.
Yeah.
Tough loss, but a great game.
Right.
Adam Nightingale just always, like, keeps his head up. Like, he has completely turned this program around, and it's what they needed. Like, they're scouting really good right now. Like, obviously, Artem Levshinov is a freshman. He's a true freshman. He was born in 2005. Like, he's young. He's supposed to go top 5 in the draft next year. He's a defenseman. I think he's just behind Seamus Casey from Michigan and leading the Big Ten in points as a defenseman.
Yeah.
He's crazy. And then you've got all these transfer guys. So you've got Joey Larson from Northern Michigan who transferred, and he's already beat his season high from last year at Northern. You've got Red Savage, who's a junior, and he's awesome. He's
awesome.
done great. You've got Reed Lebster as a transfer student. He won a national championship at UMass with Jared DeMichael. So that was a big help having DeMichael on staff now and bringing in Reed.
Right.
You've got Nico Mueller, who came back for a 5th year. You've got Nash Nienhuis is just an outstanding captain. And then, like, every single line on that team, there is no such thing as a 3rd, 4th, 2nd line. Like, they are all completely equal lines. It just depends on who they match up with the most. Right. So you've got, my favorite line on the team is Red Savage, Gavin O'Connell, and Joey Larson.
Yeah.
Their chemistry together is awesome. And on the sheet, it says they're on the 3rd line. They're not a 3rd line. No. You could go anywhere else and they'd probably be a 1st line, but it's just how the roster is set up and how they've been placed. But I will forever give credit to Adam Nightingale for what he's done for this program.
Yeah, I think that my first occurrence, or like my first little thing with Nightingale, was amazing. Just the energy that he was giving off after.
Absolutely.
And this was after their series. Who was the first series I covered? Do you remember that?
It was Notre Dame.
Yeah, that Notre Dame series, and when they won their second match of that series. I mean, he was just. I mean, his energy was through the roof, and I mean, like. Obviously, when I went into there, asking questions, I feel like maybe some of them weren't exactly worded the right way, or like maybe set up. And he was, I mean, he worked with me. He was just the whole time. He was an awesome guy as far as like media relations go. And then the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you about, I mean, obviously, he gets a standing ovation every time before the games. Trey Augustine, I mean, like, what have you like? Can you talk about him a little bit, man? I mean, like the stuff that's going on with him this year. I mean, he. Like you said, 19 years old, and he's coming here, and he's just embraced all the love and support that his school has given him so far.
So I think what helps him the most is he's a Michigan kid. He's from South Lyon.
Yeah.
So he's, like, embraced the fact that this is where he's from. He's a freshman. I think he's 19.
Yeah.
Starting goalie. He's had 3 shutouts this year. He was the goalie for the National Team Development Program, played at the World Juniors, helped them to gold. He was drafted 2nd round, 41st overall pick by the Red Wings, which his hometown.
Yeah, I mean, how awesome is that?
He sees the puck so well. Like, he's always just on his feet. Like, he's always ready for something to happen. And obviously, every team has their off days. So, yeah, there's been times where you're like, how did he let in that goal?
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us. Like, it's okay. He's having an off day, and it happens. But he has so much passion for the team. He loves everybody on the team. Everybody adores him. And it's just because he's great.
Yeah.
Like, he has been a really big part of the reason why this program has turned around. Like, obviously you get Nightingale, you get all the guys from the transfer portal. You've got 10 freshmen on the team. And one of them's Trey Augustine, and he's just been outstanding.
Yeah.
I have another question for you as well, too. We get to February, and it's not often that in February, especially around here, that we're talking a little bit more about hockey than we are about basketball, at least in a positive light.
Right.
And, I'm not super familiar with hockey. I'm not sure what our track record is, but, I after the last few years, I know that we're exceeding expectations in relation to recent performance. Can you speak to that? Michigan being more of a basketball state, more of a football state before it goes to hockey. You're a big hockey fan. I want to kind of hear what that means to you, it means to hockey fans, on campus, how that's kind of came about, knowing that we have such a big basketball program.
So in years past, obviously the state of Michigan is a hockey state. Like, we've got Hockey Town. The Red Wings are on their high right now. Like, they're playing great. They're in the 2nd wild card seed. Michigan has just blown everybody out of the water the past few years. They were back-to-back Big Ten champions for hockey. They had a really, really good group of draft guys. They had Matt Beniers, Owen Power, Luke Hughes, Thomas Bordelot, Eric Portillo was their goalie. He was great. And obviously all of these guys leave, Mackie Samoskevich included too. Like, all of these guys are leaving the program. They get a new coach. Things have changed. But on the other side of it, so has Michigan State. Like, we had, I think, 6 guys leave last year, 6 or 7 that were seniors that left last year. We've got a new goalie. We've got a new coach. But it just seems like things have completely just flip-flopped. Like, Michigan was this huge talked-about team, and now it's completely opposite in the state of Michigan. Like, it's all about Michigan State's hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, yeah, we've been known for being a basketball school. We've got one of the best coaches. We've got a Hall of Fame coach for basketball. He's great. Tom Izzo is, in my opinion, one of the...
State.
He's Michigan State. He's that guy.
University.
But you see what, obviously, the basketball team has been doing this season, and you look and see what the hockey team has been doing this season. People want to buy season tickets.
Yeah.
There's every single game that we've had at home has basically been a sellout crowd. People want to go watch a team win. And no offense to basketball, but if you go to a hockey game, there's probably a little bit higher probability chances that our hockey team is going to win over our basketball team.
Yeah.
But they've just... Yeah, I mean, we're known as a basketball school, but now everything you see on Twitter of people posting jokes is like, maybe we're a hockey school. Like, they've been great.
Yeah, I love how that started out as a joke and and slowly
it's
got
just
more
slowly
serious as this thing. You know?
Yeah, but no, it's just like it's nice to see a program come from what it wasn't to what it is now. It's just great. But yeah, now we've got the Michigan series coming up, and that's going to be a big fun.
Yeah, Dueling D is always a crazy one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Have you been to one of them before? Have you been to one?
I went last year, but it was as a spectator. So I was allowed to be in there, like, cheering, go green, and now it's going to be different, but I'm excited to, like, have the experience of sitting in the press box at Little Caesars Arena. Like, it's going to be awesome.
It's cool.
Okay, so I want to touch base a little bit on our tennis team, in all honesty.
They should
oh, my
about
gosh.
That today.
Yeah, you did do a story about it today. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, one, we can speak to the success of our tennis team, which, again, we kind of go back to the whole basketball school thing.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about our tennis team, which is unbelievable.
A lot of schools don't get to do that.
No, we don't really get to go back and forth. So today, I did a story actually just today about Max Sheldon and Ozan Baris. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I haven't, been super familiar with that yet.
Right.
Ranked as the number one doubles pair in the country by the ITA. That's the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. That's the major ranking factor. So that's, essentially what the NCAA is to football and stuff like that. So, they had amazing years last year. I was looking into it. Baris is now the 6th ranked singles player in the country, on top of being part of the pair that's number one in doubles. They went pretty far last year in the in the tournament, beat the number one ranked team as a doubles pair, Sheldon and Baris. So it's really cool to see that. I've seen, I think we have 4 guys in the top 100 right now.
Yeah.
In singles, I wasn't able to look at all the doubles pairs, but that's exciting.
Absolutely.
You don't really see that a lot. Baris being from Okemos is really cool too.
Yeah, that story is awesome.
Yeah.
Okemos is a pretty good tennis school, but to have somebody come translate that to Michigan State and then become this big. Almost. I would label him a superstar at Michigan State right now.
Junior World Series last year.
He's unreal. Yeah, he was first team All Big Ten as a freshman. He's an All American, academic All American, I believe, as well. So he kind of does it all. Same with Sheldon, but Baris is that's big time. As a sophomore to be at that high of a level right now, we might see him come out of Michigan State and performing at a world level sometime soon. He's already done it. So
he's done it already as a freshman, and that's just insane. I only have a quick tidbit on the tennis team. I haven't got to be super involved with them this year. I just at the start of this year, but I did do a lot of stuff with them at the end of last year, and I just want to say that before last year, I had nothing about tennis besides, just watching major tennis series and stuff like that. The competitiveness and the intensity that the guys have during these matches is crazy. It's so
those
insane.
Games,
it's like they're literally going to fight on the tennis court right there.
They just translated hockey to tennis.
It's like they are whoever's serving, they're going at it the whole time. And tennis courts, they're big, but they're not that big. So you can hear everything. The spectator scene isn't crazy there. Besides, after sets have been done, the way that specifically, I watched a lot of Max and Baris's matches last year, and I just mean specifically, like a lot of Ozon last year, and I mean, just the way that he plays his matches, he completely tries to keep everything to his pace as much as you can in tennis, and he just plays to his strong suit so well. So, like, I mean, like I said, it's only a quick tidbit, but I just wanted to say that, like the way that they started off this year, 6-0, aren't they? I believe
they are.
I'm pretty sure they're
8.
Yeah.
They're 8-0 now.
8-0. So I mean,
that's insane.
The start is crazy
Right.
to this year, and I mean, like you said, I mean, we don't get the opportunity to do things like this that often, so it's just been really fun to see so far, and I definitely got to get more connected as we go.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Kind of seeing like the final scores of the games too. 6-1, 7-0, 5-2, 5-2, 4-0, 5-2, 5-2, 5-2.
Yeah.
They're just blowing them out of the water.
Blowing out of the water.
It's crazy.
It's been insane. Yeah, I mean, and then their next game is Friday against Clemson, and then at Vanderbilt. It's going to be an amazing season, and it's really funny watching, the tennis team, women's basketball, hockey. It's like all these teams, and then we have the football team, and then men's basketball. The two biggest sports on campus aren't really doing all
They
that
aren't
well.
performing as well as we thought that they were going
And then
to.
now it's like all these other sports. It's like we're doing insane.
Yeah.
Right.
8-0 in tennis. We're like first place in hockey, about to be first place in hockey at least, and then we're doing
the Big
amazing
Ten.
in women's basketball. Like it's nuts.
I don't have the
Oh,
statistics,
yeah.
but I've heard the women's golf team has had an insane start to the year.
Because
too.
Katie Lou. It's because of Katie Lou.
I have a class with Katie. She's awesome.
Do you
by the
really?
way. Yeah. I have a German class with her, and but no, I mean, like I've heard they've had a crazy start to the year, and unfortunately, the men's golf team on the other side of things has not had the greatest start to the year. So those dynamics, I mean, happening on campus this year is just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's like you think that you come to a Big Ten school and you're like, yeah, basketball and football. Basketball and football. Let's go.
It's like
And then you
let's watch. We got to go to women's basketball.
Yeah.
Baseball last year was 33-22. I'm doing a preview on them for this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna have to kind of do a little bit more research to see what the expectations are gonna be. I'm gonna talk to Coach Boss and everything like that. But 33-22 last year. That's the highest win total they've had since 2016, I believe. So I mean,
wow.
You have a lot of different sports that are not really known for. I mean, the Big Ten's not really known for baseball anyway.
Yeah.
And then you lose Mitch Jebb, you lose Brock Vadenberg. You lose some pretty big guys.
Oh, yeah.
To the MLB draft. I mean, you can't do much about that, but. Oh my gosh! All of our other sports. I mean,
yeah.
You don't want to call them other sports anymore. You want to.
Yeah, you want to call them the big sports at the school.
They are the big
Gymnastics.
sports at
We
the
didn't even
school
talk
right
about
now.
gymnastics.
Yeah.
Oh
Gymnastics.
my gosh,
With
that's what I was
soccer,
going to talk
there's
about.
so many different things going
Gymnastics
on right now.
against Michigan was just. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
they're amazing this year.
Dude,
like they have been great.
We've been having some runs. Because I remember the end of gymnastics last year. I mean, how over the top everything was. Because didn't they take? That was a Big Ten championship, didn't they win last year? If I remember correctly.
It was last year or the year before. I know it was
believe
fairly
so.
recent.
Was it the year before?
I think it was last year.
Yeah, I want to say that it was.
I
last
thought
year.
it was last year.
too.
I think so too. Just because I remember the excitement around that. So I don't know how deep you guys want to get into that, but I mean, just adding on to the fact that we have all these other sports now turning into prime
quote
time
unquote
sports.
other sports.
Yeah, quote
Absolutely.
unquote. You got to make sure you throw that on there because I mean, seriously, I mean, it's been outstanding. this season.
Exactly.
And I think it's fun too. Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing that beats a great football game, a great basketball game. But I mean, hockey's getting up there now as far as how fun those games are.
Yeah.
Just seeing more and more people coming to these games. Like women's basketball is starting to get more and more fandom around it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like it's a basketball game and it can be just as fun, And now we're starting to see more people come, and it's just the experiences that Michigan State sports fans can have trying to get into some other games. I think can be awesome right now.
It's awesome. As a baseball fan, growing up playing baseball and everything like that too, it was really cool to see last year. All these sports, but for me as a baseball fan, it was really cool. To see a successful Michigan State baseball team because you don't see that very often. You don't see a lot of success in the Big Ten anyway. Michigan has been pretty successful as of late. Schools like that. So I think that's really exciting. We're rolling into spring sports and we have something to look forward to with spring sports as the winter ends. With the weather lately, we could maybe say it's spring, but I don't know. That might be too premature.
Yeah, I mean, next tomorrow it'll be 6 inches.
Probably, but yeah, I think
about
that's
negative
so.
20.
I think that's so cool, and really, really interesting. Baseball's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
February 16th is their first game.
Wow.
And I kind of
That's
want
soon.
I want to throw a shout out to that because keep looking out
Absolutely.
for that. And softball's coming up really soon as well. Same season. We're gonna be away for a while, I believe, in baseball
Okay.
though. Where it's too cold
Yeah.
up here to play baseball.
Yeah, then we bring it back
Yeah.
around, right, towards the end of the season. They have a lot more home.
Yeah,
They have a lot of
going
that
towards
this season.
mid March. I believe March 23rd is the first home game if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. So we'll have to get out there and watch the baseball this year
Definitely.
after spring sports start. But yeah, just want to throw a shout out to that because I'm a baseball guy through and through, and I can't talk about the Tigers right now. So
I will say that I played baseball for a long time, and I feel that TV does the sport no justice. But I watched a lot of the baseball games that we had last year just for working it with Big Ten, and I think there's going to be a lot to see, especially what's going to happen because you mentioned last year. I mean, watching Brock Vredenberg was just, he was
6'7",
insane. That guy-
230.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean the bombs that he would hit over there, and dude, they were at second, they were crazy. He was so obviously he got drafted, and so you have to take a step forward as far as what the team's gonna do with that. But Jake Boss, he's an awesome coach. I mean, he's a great guy.
Most successful in baseball history.
Yeah, so,
and that's saying a lot because we haven't had a lot of success in baseball overall.
Right.
So yeah.
So I'm definitely excited to see what's going to come from that, and I do enjoy it. Just the fact that you mentioned spring sports about to get ready to go get full kick. It just I'm excited, man.
I'm so excited.
Sit down and watch a baseball game. Everybody go do it if you haven't done it
Yeah.
already.
And
It's a lot
honestly,
better
with
than
the way
watching
they're
on
selling
TV.
alcohol at these games now, they probably integrate the with the baseball team in that temple.
Yeah. If you
Go
wanna
in
go
there
do
and
that,
have
that
a
might
brew
help
on
you a little
the
bit.
side of a baseball diamond. I'm with that. I'm totally with that.
Well, if we're shouting out the baseball team, I just want to give a quick shout out because today is National Women and Girls in
Awesome.
Sports
Yeah.
Day.
Awesome.
So just
Yes,
give a little round of
absolutely.
applause to all the
Absolutely.
women in sports, whether it be like journalists or communications or any of the business side or the
Yeah.
athletes. Like,
No, it's definitely
There's
been
a lot.
awesome to see the growth and obviously seeing more and more women in sports broadcasting because I
Yeah.
think you guys are able to add so much more of a dynamic that just like that as a whole brings journalism up to a whole new degree. So it's been so many. I mean, I love working with you guys. I mean, I've had so many.
So
Nah, dude, you guys are so
Aw.
awesome. And I mean, like, as far as just like when it comes down to the chemistry that I'm able to make with a guy, a female, it does not matter. It's as long
Exactly.
I think the one thing that we've been able to have up here at Michigan State is that whether it's sports writing, environmental writing, you guys share a common. We share.
We all share a common
and
goal.
It's been so fun to work with. So
Yeah.
it's a shout out to all the women in sports.
shout
man.
out to
Awesome.
all
It's
the
such an
women in
awesome program, man.
sports.
Huge
Yeah.
shout out to I want to say on the women's basketball front too. Huge shout out to Caitlin Clark, bringing a lot of attention
Absolutely.
to women's basketball as a
Absolutely.
whole.
Oh, yeah.
I think that kind of gets people drawn into women's basketball at Michigan State too. I mean,
Yeah.
aside from having a really good team right now, I mean, who doesn't want to go watch Caitlin Clark right now?
Yeah.
So I think
Caitlin
that's,
Clark and Angel Reese has been
absolutely.
great too.
I think
Yeah.
that's brought so much attention to the sport. Angel Reese, I mean, amazing player. Caitlin Clark, a phenomenal player. And I can't think of her name off the top of my head right now, but there is a girl that she goes to. I think it's USC. I think her name's Juju Watkins.
I
Juju
believe,
Watt-
yeah.
She is
nuts.
unreal. I mean, I could throw shout outs everywhere, but I mean, there is a new crop of basketball players.
She's the best freshman women's basketball player in the country, no doubt.
Yeah.
She's gonna be the next superstar.
Yeah, dude,
next,
that
next
leaves
year when
so
she's a
much,
sophomore.
That leaves so
Like,
much to behold as far as what we can see as far as the future of the WNBA and what happens there.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Right now, it's
Exciting.
college basketball is kind of
Yeah.
like where everyone's
Right.
at right now, like women's college basketball. But obviously, they're gonna have to make transitions at some point, and I think that can totally change what we've seen so far from the WNBA.
There's no
Yep.
doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, Juju dropped 50 points on Stanford,
Oh my gosh.
and I think Stanford's I think they were number 5 or number 6 in the country.
Yeah.
Just to drop and
Yeah.
just,
unreal.
I just keep getting back. She's just a freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
It's crazy.
Just
Mm-hmm.
she just
They're
leaves, it
hooping.
just leaves me
Open.
leaving me speechless
time.
out here.
All right. Well, do we want to jump to the NFL real quick?
Oh, yeah,
Because
we can
we've got
definitely do that.
I'm
it's
indeed
Super Bowl
down.
weekend.
Super Bowl
Sore
weekend.
subject for Lions
Yeah,
fans,
it's a
maybe,
little
but
bit of a
it's-
sore
yeah.
I
subject,
think
but
we've got
I mean,
enough
I
time
guess
to
I can
process
talk
it.
about it. I haven't had enough time to process it.
I
I
don't
still
know if
don't want to
anybody
talk
will,
about it.
but, you know,
We'll
it's-
never.
Who do you guys have winning?
So, I mean, if we're just going outright with this, dude, I'm a big Chiefs guy in this matchup, dude. it's a little bit of the fandom of Patrick Mahomes and what he's been able to do as far as like making his mark in the NFL. You know, regardless of, I know we can just, you know, we can get out the way right now. The somewhat fatigue of seeing the Chiefs, you know, getting to the final. I don't got it. I'm gonna be
it's
honest.
like Patriots fatigue, but I like it a little
It's
bit better
different
this time,
though because of the organizations, the way that
Absolutely.
they're represented. But I mean, just like so far, I think that like the reason that I'm so like into thinking the Chiefs can really take this home and this can be like an outstanding year for them. If you really like downplay it, a couple weeks ago, I feel like everybody was down on the Chiefs. Like everybody was like, they're like this
the whole year.
They couldn't catch.
I mean, everybody was like, they're done this year. Like this is gonna be one of the years that they're out of it. No, I don't think anybody was like completely eliminating them. But if there was any time to be doubtful about the Chiefs, it was then. But we are now here at the Super Bowl once again. Patrick Mahomes has had probably, I mean, it's statistically the worst offense he's ever been a part of.
Yeah.
And they're in the Super Bowl, okay? So you have to give a lot of credit to the defense. The defense has been amazing. And then if you kind of look, and this is where I kind of start to lean of why they're a little bit better than the 49ers in this chance of the 49ers defense has been atrocious the last couple of weeks. It has not been great at all. So I don't know. I think over the last couple of weeks, I've really started to realize that, like, obviously the roster of the 49ers is impeccable. I mean, that should, like, I didn't realize that.
That's what I was going to say,
I mean, the roster is impeccable. So, I mean, really, I'm really holding this down to, like, a defense wins championships for the Kansas City type game. They're going to have to hold them off for a while. And if they can, Brock Purdy, he's obviously shown that he's more than a game manager, but if they're going to have to make him the reason that the 49ers would win the Super Bowl.
They have to make him Mr. Relevant.
They do.
Yeah.
They have to make him the most relevant person of this entire game. As far as Mr. Relevant goes, this is going to be the most relevant moment of Brock Purdy's life.
Absolutely. See, I'm going to go opposite. I think that, like, obviously it hurts that the 49ers beat the Lions, but I feel like if I don't see the 49ers beat the Chiefs, then I'm just going to be upset about it. Because it's like we were right there. Like, we almost had the Lions. But, I mean, if you look at the 49ers roster, like, obviously their defense has been struggling a little bit, but who knows what could happen. They've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brock Purdy. Like, those are weapons right there. They're great players. They're insane. So what does that add up to against guys like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco? Like, what's the comparison there?
I just think that, like, well, I mean, now you kind of tend to experience, you know, as far as when you start talking. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is Brock Purdy. I mean, this is crazy to say that he's in the Super Bowl in his second year.
Oh, absolutely. And he was, like, picked in the 7th round. Like, he was one of the last quarterbacks to go. He was dead last.
Yeah, so, I mean, like...
And then that same year, they drafted Trey Lance to be their guy. They had nobody had any expectations for Brock Purdy whatsoever.
And then he became their guy.
And that's an awesome story. I do think it's an awesome story and everything. But I'm telling you, it's gotta end. It's gotta end here. It's just go ahead, Luke.
I'm going Chiefs.
No.
Yes.
I mean, which other team? So, unfortunately for everybody in here, I'm an Eagles fan.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Whichever team wins, I lose. Like,
imagine how Lions fans feel.
I
don't
can't,
care.
You know,
You don't
I
care.
don't,
don't care.
I'm sorry.
Okay, never mind.
We were in the Super Bowl last year and lost to the Chiefs, and then we had like this little rivalry with the 49ers, especially with Deebo Samuel because he just won't stop talking.
I mean,
just talking trash. But I mean, it's hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, there's conversations about him being the greatest football player to ever live.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm starting to be like, I can put him up there.
Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen with my own eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great.
He's the greatest talent at quarterback we've ever seen in our lives. Better than Aaron Rodgers, better than Tom Brady, better than Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Like, what can't he do?
It is all of the accolades at this point. That is the only thing separating him from literally being called the
And he's only in, like, his 7th year?
Yeah.
And he's accomplished this much. He's already had a Hall of Fame career, in his first 5 years.
He's in his 7th year, and he's about to go for Super Bowl ring number 3.
And let's point out, too, that 7th year, and he sat out a year behind Alex Smith, too. Yeah. So, I mean, he's really his 6th year.
As a starter.
As a starter. So, I have the Chiefs for sure, and I think there's a couple reasons why. The Chiefs' defense, shout out to Steve Spagnuolo, he's been awesome this year. I mean, that's a total transformation. We've been harping on the Chiefs' defense for years, and that's changed, and it's really not changed with a lot of personnel change. It's just, I mean, they've gotten a lot better. They've progressed, good corners now, which has been a problem before. Their linebackers are really good. I mean, Willie Gay, Drew Tranquil, you have some really good guys out there. I think the Lions did something really good for the Chiefs, and I think you're going to kind of hate this. They gave a little bit of a game plan on how to score on the 49ers, and I know that it didn't really come to fruition in the second half very often, but statistically, I think the 49ers were the 31st ranked defense when it came to defending the outside run, just going outside the tackles. I do want to say that there's a very good running back that the Chiefs have that has a lot of speed and they get outside the tackles. Not quite as much as Jahmyr Gibbs, but Isaiah Pacheco is really he's that guy to get outside of the tackles.
He's
so
that
I think
bell cow type of guy.
Yeah,
every time he runs, it just looks like he's about to
running
run
so hard.
I think I heard some
tackles too.
Yeah, I think I heard some arbitrary comparison on Twitter this week that he's like some off-brand version of like a Marshawn Lynch. And I was like, that's crazy, but I kind of understand what they're trying to say.
I get it.
Like, I get what they're trying to say. Like,
he's just a beast.
I think Pacheco really showed. I mean, in that Ravens game, I mean, like he was.
Took it over.
I don't know exactly how you like break it down into percentages of what he did for that offense, but I mean, the Chiefs has obviously struggled as a passing offense. They've been doing good on these. It's strange to see that all their first drives and since the playoffs have started have all been passing touchdowns, and they throw the ball down the field. But after that, they really start giving it to Pacheco and treat him like a real bell cow back. So that's been a crazy transition to see.
Really, what's changed their offense, and I think that's going to help them the most in the Super Bowl is the fact that they are going to be multi-dimensional in their offense now. Chiefs, the years past, they've relied on their passing offense heavily. They've relied on having pretty good receivers, and then you also have Travis Kelce.
Who can do it all.
Yeah, arguably the greatest tight end of all time. I think somebody actually threw that out there today. I don't know if I'll agree with it yet, but I may agree.
Right there.
I'll agree with the Patrick Mahomes, most talented player of all time, and I think at the end of the day, we may have all. I don't know if you guys didn't like Tom Brady. I wasn't a big Tom Brady guy myself because he won all the time. But you knew at the end of the day they had Tom Brady on the other side.
Right.
So that really puts you at a disadvantage. And then when Patrick Mahomes is on the other side, you're at a severe disadvantage. So the 49ers pass rush is really good. But you see Chase Young, he takes plays off every once in a while. Nick Bosa was kind of non-existent against good tackles. And that's not to say that they're not really good players, but, they weren't really as impactful as they should have been against the Lions, and that's if the Chiefs can neutralize people like that, they're going to have a really, really good time. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout per se. I think it's going to be a close game throughout. But I think the 49ers, they might be riding on a high horse right now after the game that they just had. I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you how many unanswered points that was now.
Too many.
I've kind of let that out of my memory at this point.
It hurts.
But
Few too many.
But, that showed that they can do it, but also I think the Chiefs are going to take a little bit of that confidence down in the first couple of quarters. You might see by the first half, they're like, oh, wow, the Chiefs are running the ball on us, and the game's 10-0, and we might have a little bit of a problem here.
Yeah, I don't know if I exactly think that it would be a blowout either. I kind of think that this is the way the game's going to play out, like my real basis behind the pick. I think that the Chiefs' defense, I hope, I'm kind of thinking that they're going to have an outstanding performance, and that Patrick Mahomes is just going to do what it takes to win the game. I don't think this is going to be like any Super Bowl or seasons past where like it's going to be all him. I think this is kind of like one of those Super Bowls that Brady won where it was just like he basically game managed the game and let his defense take care of it. Obviously having a Bill Belichick defense. This is the first time that Mahomes has done that, and I'm perfectly fine with the way it's played out. I mean, like obviously there's only so many things you can do. Your wide receivers you're dependent on your wide receivers catching the ball if you're making good passes. Like that's not always the same case. Like you got to be a good quarterback, but when he's making the passes that need to be made, there's only so much he can do in these situations. So I think that it's just going to be the defense is going to be like kind of like wearing the storm on this one as far as like just holding the offense down or holding the 49er offense down, and Patrick Mahomes would do just enough to get this game done.
I think he'll make the right throws, but it's up to the receivers, right? I mean, we've seen that
and they've been doing great in the playoffs so far. Like they've had, I don't know what they said to them or what they did, but they've been doing a lot better in the playoffs.
And I think that comes crucial. 49ers secondary is good, but it was a little bit suspect last, when they played the Lions.
Yeah.
And that comes from us having a really good passing offense in general.
Yeah.
But you see, they have Charvarius Ward out there. He's, he's the number one cornerback for them. He's a lockdown guy.
Right.
And you have Rashee Rice, who's really the number one wide receiver for the Chiefs. That's an interesting matchup that I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to see who's going to separate themselves if that is not going well for Rashee Rice, or if they can move him around the field. Obviously, Andy Reid's going to motion people all over the field.
Right.
So there's nobody's going to be on somebody all the time. But Valdez Scantling is going to have to step up big time.
Yep.
And Travis Kelce, we know, is going to step up big time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting matchup with him and their linebackers. Greenlaw and Fred Ward. That's Fred Warner. Sorry, that's a really, really intriguing matchup. But I think at the end of the day, Kelce kind of takes the cake there.
How much do you guys want to bet that the camera pans at Taylor Swift over 100 times during the Super Bowl?
Oh, we just lost a poster. Look, you're talking about voodoo things over here, and the universe is not happy. No, but I mean, I don't know.
The Taylor Swift conspiracy that the NFL is trying to rig games. Taylor Swift.
I think that one is so far fetched.
It's so ridiculous, man.
She draws a lot of money to the NFL, but that's the end of it.
Like the NFL isn't an entertainment business at the end of the day, as far as like trying to make money off of things like that. And then as far as her being shown on TV. Man, you can blame NBC for that, or you can go blame whoever for that. They're fine, dude. Just to play off one of these things, and I understand, and I'm a huge Lions fan myself. I think I just had a little bit more objectivity when seeing this. I think that, obviously, after the things happened with the Lions and the 49ers game, everybody was a little bit bitter around here, saying that they don't want to see either of these teams in the championship.
I was one of them.
Look, I get it. I totally get it. But I just have to remind you, man, that, like, this stuff, not even just you, but the people that were talking about, like, the Chiefs, they're all over the media, this Taylor Swift discuss. Dude, you guys are mad. And somebody, a human being, two human beings for a relationship that they're having, and then connecting that to the success and rigged games for a football team is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and when you pair the greatest tight end of all time with the most popular singer in the world, or one of
there's going to be some haters.
There's going to be tension there.
And it's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault.
It's not her fault. Like, people are blaming her for how much she's being shown on TV and how she's a huge Chiefs fan. It's like, well, one, she's dating the tight end, and it's... She's watching him play football.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal. Just ignore it.
Not root for...
Yeah, what you gonna do? Sit at home and root for him when she could be there for him? Like, it doesn't matter for any of the
If
TV,
you got the money to do it, then do it.
Yeah,
Go
he
see
doesn't
him
like
play.
that. Yeah.
I will say, she is an Eagles fan, and it is a little bit of betrayal.
See, that's why you brought it up. It's sort of subjective.
I mean, it's like, why? Come on. It's like, come on. But, it's just random people just looking for something to hate on.
I
agree.
Just grow up.
I mean, at the end of the day, it truly is sad because we are like literally putting all these hypotheticals into someone's life and relationship at the end of the day, and it's kind of disgusting.
It is disgusting. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
It doesn't concern you.
Yeah.
If
Truly.
it doesn't concern you, then just ignore it.
And I don't think that's like true sports fans that are really getting into those debates. I kind of think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
more
Nah, it's
like
just
the
people,
weather.
people with Twitter fingers.
Yes, because I think true sports fans are like, dude, I couldn't care less about what's going on with this
Right.
situation. I'm happy for Kelsey. If you're a fan, I don't care. If you're not a fan, and you move on from it. You know?
Right. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, just...
Yeah, and we all work
He's living his life, we're living ours. Just let
Yeah.
him do it.
Yeah.
It's not
we
a
all
big
work
deal.
in media here, and I think at the end of the day, we know too. I mean, we can hate on the people that are running the broadcast, but I mean, it's their job.
They're making the money.
Yeah,
They're making the NFL money.
Even if you were to
They're the
blame
people
them.
writing about it. Like, it's their job.
Right.
You can't get mad at the ratings when you figure out all these people didn't tune in, whether you literally watched to see Taylor on screen once, whether you watched it to see it and rant about it, you still watched it.
You're
and they made
still
their
turning
money.
it on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, dude. That whole I'm so done hearing that story.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm done with that storyline.
I'm a little sick of hearing about it anymore.
100%.
Just leave
it's
it
a shame
alone.
that
It's
if the
just-
Chiefs win the Super Bowl,
Oh my gosh.
that's all you're gonna hear
It's
about.
got
Oh, I know.
asterisks
That's all
next
you're
to
gonna
it,
hear
yeah.
about. They're gonna it's some big picture. Taylor's gonna go down to the field and take a picture with Kelsey, and they're gonna get bashed online.
Just turn off every single social media if the Chiefs
Yep.
win. It's just like you just don't want to look at it.
Yep.
Yep.
Because if you don't want to watch that bashing all over there the
Yeah.
next day,
Right. I do want to give one final shout out to Kirk Cousins because he was at the football game last,
Big
or not the
Kirky-o.
football. He was at the Michigan State Minnesota basketball game last
Yeah.
night. It was so cool, like
Yeah,
seeing
that
his
was
pictures
awesome
on
to
our
see it,
Instagram.
yeah.
Like that's awesome.
Big
Like
Kirky-o.
he's a Spartan for life.
Yes, he
He'll
is.
just
No,
he
he's a
supports
Spartan.
from anywhere he's
Spartan
at.
dog.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'll always love Kirk for that for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
I thought that was awesome. You watched, I was going to say, because you and I were talking recently about the quarterback,
Yeah.
the show. He was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, they like I feel like they made Kirk look like such a dad in that documentary, but it was still somehow like so interesting. To,
Right.
like, hit me in the field, man. I'm like, man, Kirk's just a regular guy, man. Like Kirk, they literally made it seem like in that documentary, like any of those quarterbacks, you could see, maybe besides Marcus, you could see them out in public and be like, oh my god. But then if you seen Kirk in public,
Yeah,
you'd be
it's
like,
like
whose dad is
Who
here,
is
bro?
that?
Whose dad is that here, bro?
What is he wearing?
Yeah, see, they were talking about like when his wife was talking about picking out his clothes.
Yeah,
I was like,
you
why
told
would they
me
put
about
that
that.
on here, man?
That
But,
poor
yeah.
guy.
I love Kirk, man. Kirk's always gonna be a legend
That's
in my heart,
awesome.
for sure.
He has a special spot in East Lansing for
Absolutely.
as do many other quarterbacks, but Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins is it. He's that guy.
Yeah,
He is that
Kirk
guy.
go chains, man. Kirk go
He
chains.
is that guy.
All right, you guys. I think that's. You guys have anything else you want to talk about? We could
I
sit
got
here for
nothing.
hours and talk
We
about
probably
everything.
could.
Yeah, we could.
Probably could. Too early for football, so we can't really get into
Yeah,
that
no
one.
more
Yeah.
football except for the Super Bowl.
when's the spring game coming out for NBC?
April 20th.
Oh yeah, so
Okay.
not too
Keep
far
going.
away. Yeah.
We're almost
it's gonna
there.
be an exciting time with the new head coach.
Yeah,
I'm
Jonathan
excited.
Smith.
That's
He's
going to be
awesome.
fun.
He's
Yeah.
awesome.
He's been showing
Yeah.
his face all over
Mhm.
campus. He's been great.
He's
had a
been
He
great start
has.
so far.
Just seeing like how involved he wants to be with everything. Like
Yeah.
he's just so supportive and it shows. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome to
Definitely.
see.
The players talk very highly of Jonathan Smith.
I was
I've talked to a few, and they love Jonathan
I was
Smith.
gonna say
think it's
it
gonna be
was a little surprising, when seeing how many guys return from the transfer portal
Mhm.
or just just returning back to the team.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool to see.
Mhm.
for sure.
I think Jonathan Smith. I think he can be the guy.
Oh
great.
yeah.
I think it's,
I hope he can be.
Yeah.
I think it's some Jonathan Smith. I mean, this is gonna go down a wormhole, but I think a little bit of NIL money too.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
that might help.
But I
But,
mean,
Yeah.
I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan, so I won't get too far into Michigan State football. I do support. I grew up around here, but yeah, we'll leave it at that one.
Okay. Sounds good.
okay.
All right. Well, this is today's episode of the Roundtable. I'm glad that we all could make it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm Madi Warden.
I'm Jayden Hewitt.
I'm DeShawn.
I'm Luke Joseph.
We'll see you guys next week.